The Suns had a magical 2010 season that led them to the Western Conference Finals. They couldn't close out the Lakers, and for the next decade, Phoenix failed to return to the playoffs. Until now, 4 games away from its first franchise title. This is the rise of the Phoenix Suns. When you think of the 2021 Suns, it's Devin Booker, Chris Paul, and DeAndre Ayton. But 10 years ago, it was Steve Nash, Grant Hill, and Amari Stoudemire. After the loss to the Lakers, a lot changed in Phoenix. Stoudemire signed with the Knicks, and Jason Richardson and Goran Dragic were both traded. Phoenix continued to try to contend over the next 2 years, even acquiring Vince Carter, but the Suns just kept coming up short, and in the 2012 offseason, everything changed. Steve Nash, Grant Hill, and Robin Lopez were all free agents, and none of them returned back to Phoenix. 2012 ended up being a tough year for the Suns. They only won 25 games, and they were really bad. Goran Dragic led the charge for the Suns the next season after coming back to Phoenix, being named the most improved player, while the Suns went over 500 for the only time in the 2010s. Phoenix likely would have been better if Eric Bledsoe, in his first year with the Suns, hadn't missed about half the season with injuries. The Suns were pretty solid the next year, but they still finished 4 games under 500, but that did lead to one of the biggest pieces to the Suns' rise, Devin Booker. Phoenix took the Kentucky star at the 2015 NBA draft, and there's no doubt that he's been one of the biggest parts of the Suns' rebuild. It took some time for the Suns to turn it around with Booker, though. Over the next 4 years, the most games the Suns managed to win in a season was 23 out of 82. They were the worst team in the Western Conference in all but one of those seasons, and with that came low fan morale.
They can support themselves or fail on their own lack of diligence.
And a lot of draft picks that Phoenix missed on. In 2016, the Suns had 3 first-round picks. Dragan Bender is now playing over in Europe. Phoenix did also technically draft Yorgos Papagiannis and Skal Labissière, 2 players that didn't pan out in their own regard, but they traded those 2 and Bogdan Bogdanovic in order to get the 8th pick in the draft for Marquise Khris, who played in 2 games in 2021. Safe to say the whole 2016 draft was kind of a wash for the Suns. It wasn't just 2018 draft struggles though. Josh Jackson was taken 4th in 2017, and he was traded after 2 years and went on to play in the G League. But to be fair, he did just have the best year of his career in Detroit. Back-to-back years, 3 first-round picks, and a whole lot of misses. But the tide was about to change. The Suns secured the number 1 pick at the 2018 NBA draft, and with that selection, took one of the most important players to their rise, DeAndre Ayton. We've already established one of the 5 big pieces for the Suns is Devin Booker, that came to the desert in 2015. The Arizona star came to Phoenix to join Booker, but he wasn't the only important piece that came in the draft. The Suns also had the 16th selection where they took Zaire Smith, who they immediately traded to the 76ers, along with a first-rounder to get the 10th pick at the draft, Mikal Bridges. No stranger to the bright spotlight at Villanova, Bridges has groomed into a reliable player in Phoenix. Don't get it twisted though, even after taking Ayton and getting Bridges, the Suns were still bad in 2018, like really bad. The season was their 2nd worst in franchise history, behind their first year in the league in 1968. With that came the 6th pick at the 2019 NBA draft. The Suns decided to take Jarrett Culver out of Texas Tech, but decided to trade him away to the Timberwolves for the 11th pick, Cameron Johnson, who has emerged as a top guy off the bench for Phoenix. The Suns have definitely done their rebuild the right way. You have teams like the Nets who have strived with money, market, and free agency to bring people in and build a contender. But the Suns' rise is a little bit more closely mirrored to the Warriors, who drafted Steph Curry, Draymond Green, and Klay Thompson before they went out and built around those guys with stars like Kevin Durant. Phoenix has brought in 2 very important pieces not from the draft, both of which this past offseason that have completely changed the dynamic and the morale on the team, and their past playoff successes couldn't be any different. Before 2020, whenever Chris Paul came up in conversation, it was always coupled with his lack of playoff success. I mean, come on, dude has been playing in the league since I was in kindergarten and still doesn't have a ring. Phoenix decided to send away 4 players and a first-round pick to the Thunder to bring in the veteran, and now he has a chance to change his legacy. There's never been a question of whether or not Paul is a dynamic player, but playoff worries were already there. But they definitely haven't been for Jay Crowder, who seems to just attract playoff appearances. He made the playoffs in 2 of his first 3 years in Dallas before making the dance all 3 seasons in Boston. Then he played half the season in Cleveland, who ended up going on to make the finals, and he finished the year in Utah, making the playoffs and doing the same the next year too. He started 2019 in Memphis, but instead landed in Miami and helped them to a finals appearance on their own. Crowder is ringless, like Paul, but somehow he's only missed the playoffs once. The Knicks' Tom Thibodeau just barely won Coach of the Year, narrowly outvoting Monty Williams. The Suns head coach came to Phoenix in 2019 in what was definitely a weird season for everyone in the middle of a pandemic. They went 26-39 before the season was postponed and later turned into the famous bubble. Phoenix didn't qualify for the play-in tournament after the bubble, but they definitely made their presence felt in the bubble. In 8 seeding games, the Suns came out of nowhere and went 8-0, earning the buzz of every media outlet. The season didn't end the way they wanted, and they surely would have made some kind of noise in the playoffs with how hot they were. But luckily, that carried over to this season. Riding high off the bubble and adding Chris Paul and Jay Crowder, the Suns went 51-21, good for first in their division and second in the Western Conference. A lot of people thought the Suns got an unfair draw in the first round, having to go up against the 7th-seeded Lakers and LeBron James, but the Suns had no issues, downing them in 6 games before sweeping the Nuggets in the second round. That, of course, set up a matchup against Paul George's Clippers without Kawhi Leonard in the Western Conference Finals. The Suns raced out to a 2-0 series lead, and they were able to fight off Los Angeles in 6 games to reach their first NBA Finals in 28 years. It felt like Phoenix was so bad for so long, and at points, the Suns faced a lot of criticism for wasting the talent of Devin Booker. But finally, the Suns stare down the NBA Finals against the Bucks, 4 games away from winning their first NBA championship. Yo, help us reach 10,000 subscribers before the 2021-22 NBA season. Click right here to subscribe to the channel. If you don't want to, or you already do because you're freaking awesome, click right here, watch another video. Peace.